Yo, this is Redman in the building. Right now, you are checking out my boy, Mr. A, at the set. Talking about real life education, community addiction, and just real people in general. So, Mr. A, let's get this shit going on. Light your blunts, fasten your seatbelts, and squeeze on your girl titty. Ow! Mr. A, at the set is starting now.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mr. A. As always, I hope everybody is having a good day, a good night, a good week, a good weekend whenever you watch this show. Welcome back. It's been a while, but today, as always, we have a very special guest, a visual artist out of Florida, Miss Yvonne Ferguson. Now, Miss Yvonne is a visual artist who is amazing in so many ways. Um, I will be posting her socials so that everybody could go take a look at her artwork. And it is powerful and it speaks of who she is as a person. And I'm very excited to have her here on the show. She joins a long list of other creatives that we've had on the show, starting with Mr. Alexis Javier out of Sofa Studios in Savannah, Georgia, Mr. El Viajero, Adrian Roman from New York City, uh, my guy out of Philly, Okori Hanzo, and last but not least, the hip hop photographer and historian, Mr. Joe Conzo. And salute to Joe. He's doing amazing things. I just saw another interview of his drop. Another great artist. But today it's all about Miss Ferguson. And I want to make sure that everybody, I will be posting clips of her work throughout the interview. And as I said, I will be adding her socials to the edited product, the finished product of the show. I want everybody to make sure they go check her out because I'm telling you, her artwork is definitely on point. And I think everybody from not only my era, even before, will appreciate her artistic work. It is that serious. So, without further ado, I want everybody to welcome Miss Yvonne Ferguson.
Hey, that was a nice welcome, man. I feel
You gotta do you get the parade wave, the parade wave. There you go. Yvonne, thank you so much for giving me your time. I truly appreciate it. I know this has been a couple of weeks in the works, and I know that you're a very busy person. So I just want to make sure that you understand. We truly appreciate you giving us your time. I've been an admirer of your work for a short time, but I have to tell you, amongst all the visual artists that I started doing research to try to get on the show, your work absolutely spoke to me. I mean, from the Biggie piece, from the ODB piece, the Sade. I mean, I have to say, and you probably heard this before, but it's sort of like a timeline of life in reference to music and the pieces that you put together. So I just wanted to let you know, man, your fucking work is just dope. I hate to sound dated by using that word, but it is. It's just amazing.
no,
Um, but
that's my favorite word. So
is it
yeah,
okay?
I use that
Okay,
a lot. We're good. We're good. But thank you.
okay.
It's an honor to be here. I don't think I'll ever get used to people's responses to my work. It's
Mm,
exciting and humbling, and it's a privilege, really.
mm. So you don't take your work for granted, I see.
No, not at all. It's too important to kind of be dismissive in that way. Um, there's
You
a
get
lot
a
of
lot of
power in what we do as creatives. So I think to be
abs-
dismissive of impact is kind of disrespectful.
oof. People that you rarely come across such talents that are so grounded. And you can tell by the way Miss Yvonne speaks about her work and how she takes compliments that she's not somebody that's ever going to get too big or above what she does in life. This is just an extension of who she is in reality. And I really appreciate that about you. It sort of comes through when we speak. You can feel that there's no putting on, there's no facade, there's no glitz and glamour about it. This is who I am. So
Yeah,
kudos to you,
yeah.
man. Stay
I
in
don't
that
ever want to
lane.
be above anyone. You know what I mean? Like I want to move with my people. Like I'm part of my people. I don't want to ever, lose focus on that.
The original, the greatest of all time, Mr. Muhammad Ali, once was referenced by Mike Tyson as saying that he was the true champion above all because he can walk out in the street and he didn't need security, as opposed to other people that walk around and they need security. And he sort of demonstrated what you just said now. You don't want to be disconnected from people just because you're an accomplished artist or whatever it is that you do in life. And I think that's
Yeah.
very important. You know what I mean?
Oh, heck yeah. And Mike Tyson is a good example of that. He's been able to kind of rebrand himself, in a way, but he's when you talk about, a student of the sport, studied that he is, is the truth. It's a lot of respect for the sport and the people that came before, So yeah, he's always been in conversations that I've observed. Mike Tyson has always been very gracious and protective of Ali's legacy and who he was as a person outside of the ring as well.
Of course. I love who Mike has evolved to become, like his place in our culture, right?
Yeah.
As a Brooklynite myself, we've always loved Tyson. Still to this day, that's the champ. And to see where he's come from and where he's landed in life right now and to be at peace is a beautiful thing. And I think that Mike is I think people don't really understand the depth of Mike Tyson. He's not an idiot. People they try to play like Mike is the dummy, a dumb boxer,
not at all.
punch drunk. And
he's an
not
astute
that.
guy.
Yeah, very much so. Very much
Yeah.
so. And I think the two most important things that have happened to Mike made him that way. One was Cus D'Amato, the man who made him, who trained him, and his incarceration. I think those two things were the most well, the biggest incarceration where he spent time for the alleged.
Yeah.
I don't want to say.
He was a very young man when that happened.
Yes, absolutely.
At the time, when you think about, it's so easy to look at people, and be like, he was an adult during that time, but he was a young man. You're still figuring out who you are. Same thing, like, when we talk about people like Malcolm X, like 25, 26, when he died, he was a baby.
Do you understand? What does that mean? My son is going to be 25 in a couple of weeks. I couldn't imagine having a Malcolm X for a son, 25 years old, commanding the enormity of who he was and the people that surrounded him at 25. That's beyond comprehension to have that. It's super rare. This society doesn't produce a lot of thinkers right now. They're
out there. We're just in the house.
Yeah. There you go.
No, they're
absolutely.
I think it's easy to say that there are people not having real conversations, right? But they're happening. You got to find them. Like we're having this conversation now. There are a lot of thinkers out there that are moving quiet.
Right. They're not at the forefront as they should be. Right.
Yeah.
They're not capturing the mind. And we both know that's purposeful. We can't have great thinkers like we once did out in the forefront,
dangerous.
Speaking to people. Yeah, super dangerous. Dangerous for them.
Yeah.
Especially.
Yeah. And I do a lot of COINTELPRO reading, and I'm always on the FBI's, website reading their vault stuff. So yeah, no, it's not safe.
As
but,
you can see,
you have to do it regardless.
Absolutely. As you can see, people, Miss Yvonne is more than just an artist. Okay, don't get it fucked up. But with that being said, let's start from the beginning. I need to know your interest in art and being a creative. At what point in your life, where are you when this starts to strike you? Like, where does this evolve from?
Started as a kid. Did not take it seriously until I was an adult, though. As a kid, I would just fill up my coloring books. My mom would get me, the little spiral notebook, and I would just redraw my coloring book and color it again over and over. Got picked on a lot, bullied a lot, quit a lot. And then started again seriously. Like I did in high school, I got a really good art teacher, Miss Peace at Gainesville High. She's retired now. So if she does see this, love you very much. She kind of pushed me to pick it up and take it more seriously, got me doing the AP art. So you could do like, college level, college credit when you're in high school and stuff like that. So I did that, did art portfolio and pursued it in college, dropped out of college. It's expensive. And then when I got my first apartment alone, no roommates or anything like that, I was looking for artwork. And, Audrey Hepburn, Marilyn Monroe, the things that you see when you're out, those canvas prints, you might come across like, a print of like a Banksy, Billie Holiday or something like that, but no like Black art.
Right.
And so I was complaining to, my mom about it, and she was like, make some work for your house. So I did. And then my friends would come over and, hey, can you make this for me? And so I did. And then I ended up having a mural in my living room. I didn't have TV at the time, so all I had was my books and my vinyl. And so I just did this mural, and then I started doing shows, and it was like, oh, you should get a website, or you should do this festival, you should apply for this residency. And now here I am.
If it's not here, you got to make it on your own, right?
Yes.
I think that it's funny now that you're saying that, recalling the conversation we had, again, to salute to Corey Hanzo. That was the foundation, that was the motivation for him to start creating his artwork. He was like, I was a collector of these things, and I was always looking for these other things that reflected who I was, and I never saw them. I didn't have any, of these people being made, and I felt the need to make them myself, because if I'm feeling that way, I'm sure there are other people just like me that feel the same.
Oh yeah, of course. And in a way, I have to pay respect to my mom. Of course, like I grew up in a household in which my Blackness was centered. So I never moved through the world feeling other. All of the literature in our home was Black. Our TV programming, when we were allowed to watch it, was predominantly Black. Music, like I just was inundated with, African American and African culture at home. And so I never had that hinge of moving in a space where I was othered, at home in a way where I felt like second class or not a priority. And so it's a precarious thing to be a creative in this country that is built on literally the backs of my ancestors, but also actively consumes and dismisses us. The country is predicated on consuming, culture of minorities, and at the same time, we're just push them off in the back in the corner. I don't want to hear from you, but I will consume the fruits of your labor. And so it's very easy to go out in the world and try to see yourself and not. And so, like that's part of the thing as an artist is I want to create the world in the way that I see it, in which I'm centered. It's also a priority for the way that I want people to experience my shows. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
You made an interesting point about American culture and how it consumes what is produced by those that don't look American. I guess is the best way I could say it.
White American?
Absolutely. Speaking about that makes me think about this moment for Pharrell, who is now the creative director or whatever title he is over at Baton or whatever clothing line that is. That speaks to that point, because do we really believe that Pharrell is going to get some sort of royalties over those pieces that he's going to produce for this line? Is he going to have any real strong stakehold in that, in that production? Sort of like what happened with Kanye and Reebok. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with trying.
Right.
I think that's something that we're kind of saddled with perpetually in this country, is doing that labor of trying to change something foundationally, intrinsically, while you're navigating through that system. And I think it's very difficult to escape your foundations. And then I think part of the problem, you know, with America and as a whole is that America has not reconciled its past and its foundation. And so until you do that, I don't know that you can evolve.
I think that America has taken a very dismissive position when it comes to, you know, how this country was built, and they'll never reconcile that, because to reconcile is to admit guilt, right? I mean, that's the way I see it.
I don't know that, you know, that's new though. You know,
No,
it's just it's literally the same conversation since the inception of this country. You know, is dismissive of any kind of history that causes discomfort. So it's just kind of like, again, you can't escape your foundation. Like this is what this country was built on. And so until you're able to, it's kind of like when people go through things and they grow as a person, you know, you have to kind of do your internal stock keeping and see what you have and acknowledge the parts of you that are, I don't want to say weak, but are, you know, not your strong side, you know, and build those things up. But that requires an honest appraisal, and we're just not having an honest conversation.
yeah, I don't think anybody in America wants to have that conversation except us. I mean, you know, from a real standpoint of, we will address it honestly and openly, and there will be no punches held. I think the other side of that conversation is not something that will be engaging. They won't feel enticed to sit at the table to have the discussion, for the simple fact that there's so much that is owed and needs to be brought to the table in order to settle that debt. So not
Yeah,
very
I mean,
motivating for them.
I don't know that it's, you know, and this is the thing that's been very difficult to reconcile as well, is that it's not really our conversation to have as people of color. You know, we're the victims of
Absolutely.
this. We're on the receiving end. So the conversation that needs to be had is not amongst us. So, like, we have these conversations in our own communities all the time. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's not on us to make these changes. You
Absolutely.
know,
But speaking
people
to
have
the
to choose to
culture,
evolve.
yeah, of course. Speaking to the culture, the American culture that's created from people of color, let's talk about your art. First and foremost, looking over your pieces through your Instagram, you know, to see the work happen and the way you produce these reels, you know, for me is amazing, because I'm not a visual artist, but to see the work done in such a pace and the end product, for me, for somebody like myself, is an amazing thing to watch, right? And the inspirations from where you draw from, they speak to me. I'm of a certain age, you know. I see Sade, I see these political figures, I see Big, you know, all things that are relative and relatable, right? So how does a young woman like yourself see these people, these amazing American figures, and start to use them as inspirations for your artwork?
Um, I think I have a love affair, you know, with music and literature and arts as a whole. And so for a while, it was just kind of regurgitating these people who I've found like pivotal to the way that I process the world around me. I read a lot. I consume a ridiculous amount of music. And you know, I'm an 80s baby. So I
Mm,
grew up at a succinct time in the music
hmm.
industry. And so to me, recreating those moments and uplifting those people, there's a love of nostalgia that goes with it. Um,
Okay.
I don't know. It's kind of like how I feel like, you know, every summer it's the 90s, even though that was like not 10 something years ago, 20 years ago. You know what I mean? So it's that for me, it brings that feeling of life, of vibrancy, you know, before I was completely inundated, you know, with societal conditioning. I'm
Mm.
still wide-eyed and excited about everything that was happening around me, which
Right.
is a magical time in hip hop and R&B and all of that, and politically, you had Chuck D, EPMD, you had some like really, serious, you know, people were moving. They were moving different, back then. And it's a little different now, but that I think I romanticize those parts, of what I can remember about my history.
It's crazy because just listening to you run those names off, I instantly remember summers of receiving cassette tapes in the mail from my sister when I was down south in Virginia, and her sending me like, "Oh, Fear of a Black Planet just came out. I know you're not here, but I know you would be listening to this, so I'm sending you a tape," and then copying uh, the lyrics, because back then when you bought a tape, each song had a copy of the lyrics. She would
Yep.
photocopy the cassette insert page by page so I would have it. And I was so appreciative because I still felt connected to back home. But the nostalgia
Hmm.
that's felt about these artists in those moments, as soon as you start running the names off, I'm just like, it's all coming back, right? But
Yeah.
and it's sort of like that with your artwork. Like you're speaking about it now, and I'm like, yeah, I remember like running off Sade's album front to back. I don't think anybody right now can name an album produced in the last 5 years that they've listened to. Like, do albums even exist anymore? Like, do we have
Oh
that?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I could name a few that I run back religiously, but like
Really?
yeah. There's a handful of people that I love their work. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Won't let it go, old
No,
or
yeah,
new.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's my thing. I think this. I think what I'm driving at is like right now the state of music, right? Not the business of it, but the state of like the artistry. I don't think I can name an artist outside of like maybe Kendrick. That I've run an album front to back. I'll be in the gym. Oh, let me reverse that comment. When I was in the gym 3 years ago, I would put on Kendrick's album and listen to it front to back till I was out. Right.
Hmm.
I don't find many artists today that I'm like, I have to get this album and I'm going to listen to it, you know, track 1 to track 10 or 15, you know. I don't really feel that power's there anymore.
I
Right.
don't know if I have that with hip hop, but
Hmm.
R&B for sure. There's a
Really.
lot of cool, R&B and alt stuff that
Hmm.
I just love.
Right.
I think probably the last hip hop album that I ran front to back was probably Igor.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, I love Tyler. So, we
Salute to
bump a lot
Tyler.
of Tyler. Yeah, yeah, Flower Boy,
Yeah.
Igor.
Hmm.
But yeah, for me right now, it's R&B and like down tempo. I listen to a lot of like Bonobo, Kamasi Washington, Flying Lotus, Teebs, R&B. I'm wearing out Jesse Reyes, Kalani, Janae Aiko. There are a lot of people that are doing good work, um,
Absolutely.
and expanding as creatives, and I respect that.
So the artwork that you're producing is tied into music, absolutely, and
Yeah.
political figures as well, correct?
Yes.
So what has been a big proponent of you driving? Let's speak to the other side of it because we understand the music. Politically, what has been the driving force behind you putting those pieces out? People who are like
Activism.
political figures, yeah, and activism, yes,
Activism.
absolutely.
Yeah, my mom is an activist, so I was raised by an activist. Um, and I grew up. I was a bookmobile kid. There was not ice
Okay,
cream trucks. There was bookmobile.
can you
And
explain that to the
so
audience that may not
oh yeah.
understand
Oh,
what
I
bookmobile?
didn't. Okay, so I
Please.
thought bookmobile was a thing, right? Well, I didn't realize that. So I went to visit my grandma for summer in Virginia, and they had, this truck, it played music or whatever, come park in the neighborhood. So I ran up to the truck, and it was ice cream, and I was pissed.
Yeah,
Because I was
I
like,
can
where are the
imagine.
books? You know what I mean? Like this is BS. I know, but it's basically like an ice cream truck for books, and you have your public library card, and they would, have different sections of books, and it was basically like about the size of an RV. It's a
Okay.
library in an RV, and so
Oh
they would
wow.
come through neighborhoods like once a week. It would be like Saturday morning, afternoon, like around 11 to 1, and they come park in your neighborhood. They stay there for a couple hours. You can check out books, and then when you're done with it, they would come. You can return it.
Oh
And
wow.
so read a lot of books, and in doing so, I fell in love with the Black Power movement. I'm still in love with the Black Power movement. It just, reading the autobiography of Angela Davis, I read that in the 6th grade. I did a report on Angela Davis, and we had to do a report on any living person in history, right? Like 6th grade, 7th grade. And I go to my mom and I'm like, well, who should I do? She was like, they better be Black. Why don't you pick a woman? And I was like, okay. So I'm going through her library. I don't know who to pick. She's like, she grabs autobiography of Angela Davis, read that. Go ahead. So I read it. I go in my mom's room and knock on the door. What's the proletariat? The answer is, come back, what's Marxism? What's fascism? I was like, and this is around this is how I'm old now. This is around the time of Ask Jeeves. So this is before Google. You know what I mean?
Wow.
97,
right.
98, right? So she's like, well, go on the internet since you got so many questions. Find her. She works at university, so her email address is public. Email her your questions. All right. Get on Ask Jeeves. Send the email off. She calls.
No.
And Angela Davis calls the house.
No,
because she's impressed with my questions.
No.
She tells me she's going to be at BCC
and
asks if I come down. So my mom was like, yeah.
6th grade.
Drives me down. I hang out with her all day. I interview her. I got my little tape recorder. I got the whole thing. I give her my book report and I'm like, can you sign this for me? And she's like, yeah, well, you got pictures in here that I don't have anymore. So she takes my original and gives me a photocopy back. And I was just kind of like, but meeting her was so cool, so sweet, so humble, big brain energy. It was just a privilege. And I've met so many activists that way. I met Stokely as a kid, like Nikki Giovanni, Kathleen Cleaver. I've met a lot of people. And so I've just been so enamored with, Black activism and Black thought that it's an intrinsic factor in the way that I process the world around me. So I honor it in the ways that I can, which is through pain.
I was going to ask you how impactful was that being, you're in 6th grade, like the rose-colored glasses, like, are they off by this point? Do you start to really understand or get an understanding of the world around you at that point?
I'm in Florida, right? I'm in Gainesville. And so at the time my mom had me, she was young. She's a college student, single parent, which means I'm going to class with her. I'm listening to lectures. I'm reading her books too. What are you doing while she's writing papers? I'm looking through her books and I'm reading that stuff. You know what I mean? And so did I understand the magnitude at that time of what was happening? Absolutely not. I was like, she's a nice person. She did some thug gangster stuff. This is cool. I don't think it wasn't until I ran into her again as an adult, several years later, and her remembering me that I realized like the magnitude of like, this is a big deal. These moments, these things that happen in your life, where you're forced to be present, and process in a way and share in a way, those moments are magic. That was just, I don't know how you describe that now. Like as an adult to me, it's just kind of like, oh yeah, I met her. It was cool, but there's just so many brilliant minds out there. So to be able to overlap with them in any way, shape or form always feels like a gift.
I gotta ask, what was the second interaction with her like? Did she remembered you? You said, correct?
Oh yeah.
What
it was?
was
we were at it was an MLK anniversary banquet, something on campus. My mom dragged me to. I didn't want to go. My mom she worked for UF for a long time, and I was just like, whatever. Is there gonna be food? And I was like, go eat this food or whatever. You know what I mean? Banquet dinner or whatever. She's like, oh, Angela Davis is going to be speaking there. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll go. So after she does her lecture, everyone has dinner, everybody's lining up to meet her the meet and greet part. And so I'm standing in line, and someone had skipped me in line, a professor skipped me in line. I'm not going to name drop because whatever. But she was like, she scooped around her and she was like, Brittany? Because that's my first name. My first name is Brittany. And I was like,
Angela remembers me.
yeah. You know, and so all these people are looking at me like, well, who the hell is she? You know what I mean? And that I was like, okay, yeah.
Google
that's
me.
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah, Google
So
me. You don't know
cool.
me. Google me now. You don't know who I am?
No, but it was cool. That was like my one ego moment, you know, with people that I've met, because I've gotten to meet a lot of really dope people, but that was like, hey,
Angela Davis. That is, I've met people in my life. I went to the premiere for a great movie called Palante Siempre Palante about the Young Lords, which is the Black Panther equivalent for Puerto Ricans, and they actually worked together through the Chicago chapter with the New York chapter back then. And there were Panthers there, but being that I can't remember everything so well, I don't remember exactly who was there. But
no, they all got around.
Yeah, definitely. They definitely did. But it was beautiful to see the representation, because these men and women worked side by side, which a lot of people don't know about, and did a lot of jail time. And a lot of them went on to do amazing things with their lives, right? But at the same time, the actions that these young, because they were young,
Kids.
they were kids. They were young adults, kids. The actions that they took were so impactful that the FBI had to do something about them, right? We're talking about government institutions that dismantle and topple other regimes around the world, had to take on these kids.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine having this woman recognize you and like, hey, move it. I don't know you. Get out of the way. You're skipping my girl here.
But that's kind of that. But that's the beauty of, you know, to just like double back on what you said. Like, these were kids, right? For all intensive purposes, like young adults at max, you know, and to have the government have to be like, this is a problem with these young people, speaks to the power, you know, that we have when we move as a community. And so that I absolutely love. You know, I am enamored with the Black Power movement. Enamored. And so like meeting her, meeting Kathleen, you know, meeting Nikki Giovanni, like that, it's just all privilege. It's a privilege to interact with, in my mind, Black legacy.
How relatable socially are these things for you with your friends growing up? Because being in Gainesville, Florida, you already know. No. Listen, I've been through Gainesville. I've been Gainesville, Pensacola. Yeah, like it's the Treasure Coast. Like, I've been up and down through the Treasure Coast, coming down through your area, St. Augustine, where the Mets have their spring training camp. I go there all the time, and I don't know why I'm forgetting the name, but I've been up and down through there. So how does this impact you socially? Like, the friends that you keep, because not many sixth graders are jumping headfirst into this part of life or history.
I would say it made me more of a weirdo. You know, honestly, it's very hard culturally here, being Black and being an activist and being enamored with militancy, with Black militancy. It just it alienated me a bit. And also I got a C on that project, by the way, right? So that's how wicked my teachers were.
How Sway? How is that even possible?
Systemic
Autograph and all? Say that again.
Systemic impression. Yeah, I got a C- on that report. That hurt me. But then I had to laugh at it because I was just like,
demonstrable. Right. Yeah, you're demonstrating my point for me.
Exactly. So I cried, you know, and then I was like, you know, my mom was like, well, what'd you just do your report on? I was like, systemic oppression. She was like, oh, okay. And so that, so it's no, I mean, I as an adult now, I can have these conversations with my friends and be like, oh, that is fire, but as a kid, I'm not talking to other kids about that. They have no idea.
Right.
They didn't even know who she was after my report, So yeah, it's kind of like being in a bubble,
I honestly thought you were going to tell me that your mom walked up to the school and was like giving that teacher the business. Like,
she was pissed, but my mom experienced the same thing in school. So, we just kind
naturally.
of, you do what every other person of color does and dust it off and keep moving.
Keep it pushing.
Yeah.
Wow. So let me draw everybody's attention to the pieces that are behind Miss Yvonne. And I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound repetitive because I'm sure you probably heard it 1,000 times. I've seen artists do depictions of Big. Now, being that Big is from Brooklyn, my hometown, he is, his figure, his imprint on hip hop, who he was, is so it's larger than life for us. There's so much connectivity with his life and our life, right? So he's like
Mhm.
one of our champions. I've seen so many people do depictions of Big, but I've never seen something like this. And I'm not trying to, overhype or try to pump you up about it. Seeing Big with these pastel colors and the way you've put that piece together, I have to understand how that came to be. Put me in
Yeah.
your
So
tell me what Yvonne is thinking when she puts that together.
Yvonne was not thinking when she did that. That was so you get into a place like I like to call the pocket when you're working, and it's kind of like what artists call athletes call flow. And to me, when I'm in those moments, I'm not consciously guiding. I'm reacting, with whatever mediums I'm working with, and my ancestors are moving through me, to the canvas. Now, that Biggie painting, I had just got chin checked emotionally, like heart heartbreak right there,
Oh,
and I didn't know what to do with myself. Um, and I was listening to Life After Death, and I grabbed my palette knife. It was the first time I used it. I was like, I never used this before. Let's see what it do. Do some paint on it. Started slanging. I used my hands, and yeah, 45 minutes later, this guy was born. And
wow.
that's on my do not sell list. Like I cannot part with that. It's just because emotionally, I'm tethered to it in a very specific way. They would have to take, you know,
An
hell to freeze
exuberant amount
over
of money.
before I would have consent to letting that go.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you heard that. I said an exuberant amount of money, and she said hell to free is over. The artist has a
Yeah,
different
but I don't
sort
get
of
to make money decisions. That's my momager. So
mom knows what it is. She's like, nah, I gotta be 100 stacks or better. We ain't letting this go. No, but that piece, just alongside the other pieces that I saw in your Instagram, and it's like I said in the beginning, I was looking at a lot of different visual artists, and just know, I did not reach out to anybody that I saw. I got to you, and I started scrolling through your gram, and I was watching you work, and I was like, I have to speak to her. I didn't. It wasn't that I reached out to somebody and they're like, yeah, I don't want to do you. No, I saw your shit and I was like, you know what? I gotta speak to this girl because this work is just different. You understand? Like
thank you.
like you said, people get in their pocket, especially like with sports. When you know somebody's in the pocket, there's like no stopping it, right? And there's something beautiful that comes out of that. Jordan has his 63-point game against the Celtics. They lost,
Mhm.
but that is a fucking masterpiece. It's unparalleled. Nobody's ever done
Yeah,
it, right?
yeah,
You see these moments where these musicians play and they just have these moments where they're in their pocket.
yeah.
Rappers. My favorite rapper of all time is Rakim. Rakim
Okay.
was light years ahead. And when I say he was just light years ahead of everybody. And his albums, he's in his pocket, sending messages, double, triple entendres. You got to run it back and go, wait, what did he say? When I see your pieces, I'm like, there's just it comes from such a real place. You don't see that very often with artists today. Everything is more of like following a mold, sort of like the
Mm.
music in a way.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but there are very unique artists such as yourself that have these creations that is just it's amazing to see. And I think the world needs more of that. We need art, right? It speaks to our humanity.
It
Young people don't
does.
get
It
that.
does. It's I don't know if I'll ever get comfortable receiving compliments about my work. Um, but I think about it often, when people call me an artist. I'm just getting to a point where I'm starting to call myself an artist.
Mhm.
But I think about, I had a conversation with Ibram Kendi. We had went to like a book sale and we were hanging out eating or whatever. And, we were talking about, what we do, and
Mhm.
he was like, well, you're an artist. And I was like, I don't feel like an artist. Like, I don't want that. I paint, I don't want that responsibility, you know what I mean? And he was like, when your community bestows that title upon you, then it's yours. And so I try not to shirk that off, but I'm not the best at receiving compliments. Um, it it feels like a privilege, to be able to do this and to have the ways that I explore myself and the people that have shifted the way that I consume the world around me in a new way,
Mhm.
and kind of sharing my love for that subject, whatever it is at that particular time, with people. And so it's humbling for me every single time. Seeing people engage with my work is a privilege and a gift. And so I
Mm.
try to just kind of hold on to that and make sure that I'm having real honest conversations, and
Mm.
I'm prioritizing, Black existence for no other reason than, that we exist.
Do you ever feel bogged down by maybe some work that's being commissioned, or somebody just being a little too overzealous about something that they may want from you when it comes to your art?
Um, Not directly anymore for two reasons.
Okay.
One, they deal with my manager now, so I don't have to deal with those conversations so much. Thanks,
Okay.
mom. But it's I stopped doing commissions for that reason. Um,
Ah.
I would get requests that I have for me to work, and some artists need this and some artists don't, but I have to be able to tether to what I'm working to in some way, and I was getting so many requests for commissions that I was inundated with them, and I
Mm.
couldn't hear my own creative voice anymore. And then I got depressed, and then I started struggling, and then I got burnt out, and it was my inbox was just piled up with requests. And because you're in that mode where, like, yeah, I want to get this artwork to these people and I want to do things that are important to them, but I deprioritized doing things that were important to me, and I lost touch with art because of that. And so now I'm not even considering doing commissions right now. I'm just focused on pushing conversations that I want to have about the Black experience and what that means to me. And so people take it good. Sometimes people don't. But it's just what I need for myself right now. I don't know if I'll ever go back to that or if I'll do it selectively, but yeah, it just became overwhelming. I had someone message me and ask me, to paint someone that was deceased, a week prior, and they needed it, in a 5-day turnaround. And I'm like, that feels disrespectful to that person. That's not something I would want to rush in that way. So yeah, just kind of outlining harder boundaries around my work has been interesting.
I think that's important for your own, as you said, you went through a moment of being sort of in a rut. And if you don't feel it, it's not going to flow, as you said
Oh yeah.
earlier. And it's
Yeah.
important because then the true artistry is not going to come out in the end product.
Yeah.
Again, when I see these reels and watch you put these things together, you can see how natural it is for you. And the end product really shows, like, holy shit, the talent, the love, the labor of love is there, and you can see in the finished product. And it's important. If you're just going to start churning out, commission work for the sake of getting money, the art is going to change. because it's not
Yeah.
going to come from that organic place internally, right?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
you thrive. Speaking of thriving, your work lives in a land of both political and musical, right? Have we ever gotten outside of those two places? Like, I don't see landscape work coming from Miss Yvonne. I don't see, bridges and, the Eiffel Tower being done by Miss Yvonne. Is this where you're?
I would never paint the Eiffel Tower.
Well, I'm sure there's a very good reason why that we both can come
Oh
to
yeah. Yeah.
when it comes.
I've dabbled in landscapes. I've done things, in commissions that aren't my go-to by choice, and I've kind of just focused on being a portrait artist for quite some time.
Let's change the gear here for a second. Let's speak to the music. Let's talk about the painting that's above your left shoulder. Tell me about how that all came to be, because a lot of people may or may not recognize that piece of art.
Oh, okay. Well, if you don't recognize it, Awaken My Love is a bomb album by Childish Gambino. Do your thing, do your research, and check that out.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's probably I love that album. It's in my top 10 right now, heavy rotation.
Absolutely.
I have a fascination with album art. I've always had a fascination with album art. I feel like it's a lost art right now. Like being an 80s baby growing up in the 90s, like shopping, like there were all these different music stores. We had like Media Play. Do you remember Media Play?
We didn't have that in New York.
Media Play was
Tower
like that, kind of.
Yeah.
Books, music, vinyl, cassette tapes, CDs were a thing, video games, instruments, all in one store.
Wow.
And that was like one thing we would do, like, once a week. My mom would like take us to Media Play. We can get something like book or CD, game, whatever, And so thumbing through album artwork, looking at vinyl LPs and just being kind of obsessed, with the power of an album art, like Bitches Brew, Miles Davis Bitches Brew, album art,
Amazing.
and just the impact that those albums have on you, because the art was part of the experience. Like now you stream all these things, but you're listening to cassette tape, which I still do, or vinyl, you're disconnecting from things, and your entire focus is on experiencing this thing. Whether you're reading the lyrics in the jacket or you're just, looking at the artwork as you, flip through, these albums. It's just something that I've just been in love with, and it brings back that loving nostalgia I have for the 90s. And so I've been making album art, and thinking about ways where I can change that into, a show where you can experience the album art through the ways that I consume it. So I've been thinking about ways that I can like create album artwork or recreate album artwork, and put my own spin on it. And so I've been doing these around the house. I did the Best of Sade album cover, Janet album cover. I'm also working on the back of that, with just the jeans.
Oh,
It's
Janet.
But yeah, it's just, I love album art. I love artwork on books. Like it's my thing. It's my ASMR kind of.
It's funny that you're saying that, and as you're saying it, I'm thinking about all the albums. I'm thinking about 3 Feet High and Rising, De La Soul's first album. I'm thinking People's Instinctive Travels, Tribe's first album, EPMDs, all these albums of early hip hop, that there was a package. It wasn't just the music. There was a whole package that came. There was a lot of thought. There was a labor behind everything, right? And I could remember laying on the couch with the cassette playing and pulling the insert out. You could just pull it out. You can see who's credited. You could read the lyrics. the shout outs, everything. There was so much that went into it. And as you said, there's so much connectivity to those moments that
Mhm.
it brings you back to those times, right?
God, like hearing you talk about that made me think of the first time I looked at the insert on the Thriller.
Mm-hmm.
It had all my sketches and the lyrics in there, and I'm just like, how do you make this experience better? You give me art. You give me art with it.
Absolutely. I come from a time where renting video cassettes was a thing. I actually worked in a
Oh
video
yeah,
store,
I still
and
have my Blockbuster card.
I just found mine like 2 weeks ago. My son pulled it out. Um, I remember having the making of Thriller at my house for like 3 weeks because I was
Ooh,
so fascinated with everything that went on to make
all
that
the late fees.
video. Yeah, no, I worked there, so I just took a copy and was
Oh,
like,
okay.
yeah, I have it at home. I'm bringing it back. Don't worry about it. But I just remember watching that and understanding all the things that went into making that video happen. It was just like, Jesus Christ. Then
Yeah,
the
that man was
actual,
deliberate.
are you kidding me? One of the greatest musical minds of our generation, of our time, of this world.
Yeah,
You know,
certainly
we
of my
just
lifetime.
yeah. We my you know what? My son was a Michael Jackson fan. He actually not to divert, but he sang in a chorus out here in Staten Island who became a little popular for a while. They were doing TV appearances and everything. And I
Hmm.
just remember getting like 20 calls the day Michael Jackson they announced his death. And they were like,
Yeah.
"Where's Elijah? Where's Elijah? You gotta get in touch," because they all presumed that he was gonna be a wreck. And he kind of held it like
Mm.
a champ, but he was able to sing Ben on the Good Morning Show on Channel 2.
Ooh,
And
nice.
I was really happy for him for that. Yeah. Still loves Michael to this day. Don't say
I
nothing cross.
mean,
Don't say nothing cross about
listen,
Michael.
my mom is diehard Mike fan. Still has her vinyl from when she was a kid.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, I grew up in a Mike house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So let's change gears a little bit. I know somewhere along the lines there was a show that you had done. Uh, I believe you were talking about a residency.
Hmm.
I want you to share with everybody what that residency was like, how it came about, and what the overall theme of it was.
Okay. So that was my first art residency. Um, First time I applied for it, did not get in. I was butthurt, and I was like, I'm not applying again. You know. And then my mom was like, yeah, you are. Ended up getting accepted and going out to Vegas for 6 weeks. Shout out to the Rogers Foundation because that was a beautiful experience. Um, but it was the first time I had not my first solo show, but complete control over the space in which I was working and not sharing that with any other artists.
Hmm.
They were very clear, like you can use every wall in here however you want. Put vinyl on the wall, like whatever you need to do. Just put it back when you're done.
Okay.
And so, I was brainstorming with my mom, trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And I started listing out all these people, all these names. I still use index cards for everything. So I grabbed an index card and I'm writing down all these names. And I was like, you have 6 weeks. You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know. And she was like, well, what do all these people have in common on your list? And I was like, they all been to jail. She was like, okay, well, you want to have a conversation about that. And at the time I was reading A Black Against Empire, which is, if you haven't read that book, it's huge. It's kind of a tome, but it's about the evolution of the Black Power movement, particularly the Black Panthers philosophy, and it's the way it's laid out is it's an evolution of their philosophy over time from inception to when they kind of like dissolved. And so I've been reading that, and so now I'm actively thinking critically, about the prison industrial complex. And so we put together the show, The Existentialism of Blackness,
Mm.
which was for a conversation about the intersection of Black bodies, Black and brown bodies, with the prison industrial complex, its effects on the Black community, their family, the fiscal impacts, the impacts to their legacy, Does someone being incarcerated, make their legacy within the community illegitimate? Did he crop that out? You know what I mean? We're talking about iconography. We're talking about cancel culture and redemption and what that means in our society. And so I was taking everything in the show was mugshots. So I was taking their mugshots and putting their, prison ID number, because that's, part of the indoctrination into this prison industrial complex. You lose a name, you get a number. And basically pairing them, with other people, to have conversations. So I had Mike Tyson, Brittany Griner were a pair on the same wall. I did Tupac and Left Eye were together. Angela Davis and ODB were together. I did Will Smith. I did Malcolm, Stokely Carmichael, and Assata Shakur, and Billie Holiday and Prince. And those were all completed during that residency. And then we had flew out Dr. Crystal Falima, who's at Kentucky, and we did a conversation about the prison industrial complex and then opened the floor for like questions. So it was a really, really nice experience, and it changed the way that I approach, collections of work and how I want to say things.
And the experience, being in that residency, did that experience sort of shape you, your artwork even more going forward? Like, did that sort of influence the work after you left Vegas?
Yes. Yeah, definitely a big permanent change in the way that I work. I've, for the most part, just been a working artist, meaning working a full-time job and also painting full-time, right? Like a lot of people. Grind culture, right? So having 6 weeks in which my only focus was to feed myself and paint. I'm working 8 to 12-hour days. Like I will wake up 7:30. I'm at the gallery and I'm working. And I'll go till the sun goes down, so about 6:30 p.m. and I'll carry paintings back to the loft I was staying in, and I work on those till about 10, 11 at night and go to bed and start over. And I just fell in love again with art. And I also noticed that, having literally nothing else to do, because, I can't make more time, right? So we're getting down to the wire. I have no choice but to get it done. And also spending other people's money on art supplies is really nice. So I got to buy some really things that I wouldn't do otherwise. Art stuff is expensive. I'm out here buying, like golden, open, slow dry acrylics. They're, $15, $20 a tube. I got some nice paintbrushes, and that changed it changes the way you work with your materials. And it changed my style permanently for the better, I think. But just the way that I approach my work collectively, before I start, now I'm thinking of what is this saying, about this subject? What is this saying about me, and how am I making it mine? How am I adding to the conversation? And that's something that's new for me. So very exciting time.
That's dope. The continuous evolution of your work is something that I think not only myself, but people who are lovers of art are going to be looking forward to. I think at this stage right now where you're at is super pivotal, and I'm hopeful to see more exciting work coming from you. And I hope that you start taking your artwork in the sense of direction, in another direction, opening up another door. So I want to see some shirts. I want to see something. I gotta, something. Yeah. We need some product placement. Let's go.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Like that's it's all like where we're going now. With art, with me is been pretty interesting. I just recently left a job, so I'm just a full-time artist right now. And I had a show that I was working with that I canceled over some censorship. Just because of where our leadership is right now. And so I've secured a place that's comfortable with the message that I want to have, and is giving me complete control of the space. So we're looking forward to having some more challenging conversations about the realities that a lot of us have to move through. And so I'm eager for that. I'm very eager for it.
So is this going to be something a little more permanent going forward? Are you going to be able to?
Hopefully, what we want to do is get a collection of work and into other galleries.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah.
I think that if and when that happens, you have to set up some sort of live stream. Not something that
for
you're
sure.
sitting up in front of the camera, but to give everybody access to see what's going on. I think that would be a wonderful thing.
Yeah, definitely need to get into some videography because there was a lot of aspects of that. The conversation around the residency in Vegas was amazing, and none of that got to be shared. And so, it's just more things for me to more hats
Oh, of
to
course.
consider and put on.
Tell mom to put a little money in the budget for an assistant. You need a eager beaver from college.
Get an intern. Need an intern.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's what you need. Put a flyer out there on U of F's campus and be like, yo, I need an eager beaver. Come work for me. It doesn't pay, but you'll learn a lot.
I can pay you with art.
Oh, for sure. All right. So before we close out the show, can you please tell everybody from your website to all your socials where they can find you, please?
Yeah, so website is diasporicpigments.com, as in pigments of the diaspora. I have an Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. The Facebook is Diasporic Pigments. My Instagram and TikTok handle is the same. It's Yvonne, YVONNE.Ferg, Ferg. And you can catch me on any of those.
Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you go check out Yvonne's work. Check out her websites. Pick up a painting. We got to support these artists. They deserve our support. They need our support. So make sure you support Miss Ferguson's work. I don't mean to call you Miss Ferguson, but
no, you're good.
Make sure you support Yvonne's work. She's a dope artist. And we're hoping that we're going to see even more amazing work from her. And who knows, maybe the hoodie line comes out, the hat line, the shirt, whatever it is, socks. I don't care. I want to see this artwork placed somewhere. But I want to thank you immensely for your patience and being so giving of your time. If there's anything coming up that you want promoted, because there's going to be a segment of the set where I'm going to be doing like weekly goings on, sort of like current events or whatever, but I'm going to be focusing on also promoting artists, musicians, so on and so forth. Just hit the DM and I got you.
So thank you. I appreciate that.
No,
it's an honor and a privilege to be invited to have this conversation. So I'm thankful for it.
And I'm thankful that you were so honest and candid about who you are. I think it's going to speak to a lot of people that may or may not understand these things and how they can get in touch with finding out and reading more. And if you don't know, Miss Yvonne has a collection of almost 600 books that's sitting behind her. Brianna, somebody got you in competition right now. But thank you so much for giving me your time. And I'm going to end this, but don't go nowhere. I'm just going to tuck you away for a quick second and close out the show. Ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Florida, Miss Yvonne Ferguson. I can't tell you what a labor it was to make this finally happen. Yvonne was absolutely amazing in that she didn't refuse my request. And there was quite a few artists that I was looking at to have on the show, but her artwork I felt was more in tune and in line with the theme of the show, to who we are, and her work is amazing. So I would implore everybody, if you haven't checked her out, go check her out, and we'll be seeing you guys again right here on the set. As always, I'm your host, Mr. A. See you in the next episode. Boop.